Thank you, Dr. Leong. As you know, Dr. Leong is a very good friend and also a former colleague of mine in the Department of History, University of Malaya. We worked together for quite a long time. We have written several petitions too. We have also become good petition writers while we were in the university, taking up those causes that we thought were just and right and for the betterment of the university. Well, ladies and gentlemen, lecturers of UTAR, Brahman College in Ceylon, and students. And I think you come from a variety of fields, not necessarily international relations or US foreign policy. Nevertheless, I think this is a subject that will be of great interest to anyone, simply because America is a world power, and what happens in the United States impacts all of us, the rest of the world, in one way or another. What more when we have a very controversial figure now in the United States, which many people actually did not really expect the election to go in the way it did. However, I had my reservations about 1 or 2 weeks before the actual nomination day. I began to suspect CNN because I found that they were actually very pro-Hillary and very anti-Trump. So that raised my suspicion. This is a mass media. Why is it picking up always the faults of Trump and not trying to give a balanced picture? So it raised my suspicion. And then I also then began to entertain the thought that this man can win. And finally, it so happened, he won, much against the predictions of the media and also the world at large. Okay, now that he has won, he is the president of the United States. And so what should be the natural reaction? We didn't anticipate it, but we have to give him a chance. Because we have to judge a leader by his actions, not by his words. All right? Always, as you know, many campaign promises are made by all politicians all over the world. They even promise a bridge where there is no river. We know that happens. But what they actually do and what they deliver is the standard by which we've got to assess their leadership and their performance. So that is my approach. He has taken over. Let us see in the next 4 years how he will do. But we still have to see, as analysts, what directions his policies, internal as well as external, might take. And that's actually the purpose of our meeting. We are all here to gain knowledge and information and also a better understanding of US foreign policy, especially towards Asia and our region, Southeast Asia. So that's why I also titled my talk, Moving from the Known to the Unknown. That's where we are now. We are in uncharted territory, but what has happened will give us some directions as to where Trump might go based on what he has said in the campaign and what he has promised to deliver, and what will be the points of departure between a Democratic administration under the Obama presidency for the last 8 years and what will be the direction now that Trump will be taking it. Clearly, it will not be in the same direction as Obama. That is definitely on the cards, and this is what we need to analyze. So what do we know? We know that the United States during the last century, I would say, it is a superpower, it is a global power. It has been the richest nation on earth for a long, long time. And it has been always engaged in Asia. If you know the history of US involvement in Asia, it started with the occupation of the Philippines in 1899. So the United States has been a major Pacific power. It was also a colonial power because it occupied the Philippines and administered the Philippines from 1900 to 1946 when the Philippines were given independence. So, but the United States also was first in granting independence because they themselves went through an anti-colonial revolution. And so they believed that independence is something that belonged to the people and they could not continue with colonialism. They were against colonialism. So Philippines got independence first. So if you trace the history from then on, and especially after the Second World War, United States got involved very much in Asia. United States prioritized, of course, China. China was a very important player in Asia. So US-China relations have always been very, very important, besides US-Japan relations. Japan and China have been extremely important in the way the United States conceived of Asia. So you can see even under Trump, his conception of Asia is largely China, Japan, and South Korea. He's talking more about that, you know. India is part of Asia, but he sees India having its own momentum in South Asia. So you can see that in the period of the Obama administration, to very quickly review, the United States has been involved with ASEAN. And Obama, as you know, has come to Malaysia, he has come to Southeast Asia for APEC meetings and also for US-ASEAN dialogues. When we have our post-ministerial conference every year, the summit meetings that ASEAN holds with the dialogue partners. US is one of the dialogue partners. So Obama is very familiar with Southeast Asia. He himself has some Indonesian background, as you know, yeah? So this is the difference we're going to see now. Obama has talked about ASEAN. He has mentioned ASEAN several times. So far in all the campaign, speeches that Donald Trump has made, including at the inauguration speech, he never mentioned the word ASEAN. It doesn't exist in his mind, right? So you can see, therefore, his approach to Asia is going to be very different. He's basically a businessman, and he'll be driven more by business instincts compared to the larger geopolitical way of looking at the world, which I think the Obama administration was much more comfortable as a global player. So if you look at US relations with Southeast Asia, with ASEAN, it began especially in 1977 in terms of recognizing ASEAN as an important regional force. And of course, when ASEAN was formed, there was a very strong ideological motive for the formation of ASEAN. This was during the period of the Cold War, you know, the battle between communism and anti-communism. So ASEAN was clearly an anti-communist organization, and that was the driving force behind the formation of ASEAN, largely security-oriented, largely an anti-communist effort to stop the tide of communism spreading from Europe to Asia, and then from China to Southeast Asia through Vietnam and so on. So when the Cold War ended, you can see ASEAN also was developing as an organization. And because the US also supported ASEAN, and the US was involved in the fight against the communists in Vietnam, you can say that it also held the fort and gave the breathing space for ASEAN to consolidate itself as a regional organization, to build confidence and to strengthen political stability and economic growth. So ASEAN then developed and grew as a regional organization and has become an important regional force today. Now, during the Bush administration, as you can see, 2000 to 2008, there was clearly the impact of the 9/11 attacks on the United States, and the Bush administration paid more attention to security. So there was much more of a unilateral approach where the military dimension was emphasized more, and clearly the campaign was also to sort of root out Islamic extremism, because those who committed the terror happened also to be Muslims. So there was clearly a focus of this kind of counterterrorism, and this was continued also under the Obama administration. So counterterrorism has always been an important foreign policy platform when it comes to maintaining the state system as we have. You know, terrorism is a transnational threat. And because it's transnational, states are uncomfortable with anything that is borderless and that, you know, transcends national borders and poses a threat to regime security and state security. So on that score, you will find that Obama or all previous presidents are committed to the maintenance of the international system based on the nation state. That will continue, yeah? So transnational forces will have a very tough time trying to set up a world order based on ideology. whether you call it global caliphate or whatever, these are all transnational ideologies. Even communism was a transnational ideology, but you see how even communism was defeated by the force called nationalism. Ultimately, nationalism defeated communism. And communism itself split into various national types, national variants. Cuba called it Castroism. Yugoslavia called it Titoism. In Russia itself, communism was being nationalized. Stalinism, and then later Khrushchevism, and then Brezhnevism. If you have studied Russian history, you will know. So even there, it went through the national varieties. Yeah? So even in China, what you have today is not really communism. Yeah? It is what China can manage. China today, by the way, is the most capitalist of all nations in the world. But you have the Communist Party of China ruling China. It's an administrative system, an authoritarian system that allows for the organization of power. So there's not much ideology really in China today. It is very profit-driven, it's very capitalist-oriented, it's growth-oriented. Yeah. So therefore, other countries also find it easy to do business with China. There's no more communism to talk about. So after the Obama administration, the Obama administration talked about even the US pivot to Asia, because the US was finding that its power was declining in this part of the world. There was India rising, there was China, which had already risen. And so you have new centers of power that have already emerged. So what was the US role? The United States was a global power, a superpower in fact, much stronger than even the former Soviet Union. So after 1990, I think when Obama took over in 2008, he tried to actually resuscitate American hegemony, I would say, or American interest and control and power and supremacy in this part of the world. So he called it pivot to Asia. Pivot to Asia means giving more priority now to Asia, because Asia is the future. The rise of China, the rise of India, the role of Japan. It is the Pacific century, no longer the Atlantic century. So power was moving more in the direction of Asia and moving out of Europe. And this is the reality. The trade figures will indicate it. The investment figures will indicate it. The growth figures will all indicate that this is the place where the action is. So he talked about the pivot to Asia to rebalance American power so that American interests are, I would say, aligned with the global order that is emerging. So let's move on to the next slide. All right, so now even the pivot you can see is going to be, I would say, revamped. Yeah, the United States pivot to Asia. You can see how much emphasis the Obama administration gave to Asia and even Southeast Asia. This is the emphasis you're not going to find under Trump. You can see how many leaders' meetings were held and how many times the United States talked about ASEAN. You can see the ASEAN leaders meeting in Singapore, ASEAN leaders meeting in New York in 2010 to strengthen the economic relationship between the US and Southeast Asia. The US-ASEAN leaders in Kuala Lumpur, 2015, very recently, and also the last effort by Obama to call all the ASEAN leaders and to brief them about US policy and the future direction it will take. And this was in 2016. He also talked about the South China Sea, which we will give some more attention because it is quite relevant. Yeah? We move on to the next one. Now, how is the political strategic dimension going to be under Trump? As you can see, you'll have to look at the existing situation. The United States has the most number of alliances, security alliances in the world. US presence is still very global. Yeah? In Asia Pacific itself, the United States has nearly about 100,000 troops. Yeah? They are based mainly in Japan and also in South Korea. And also offshore bases. So the United States is still a very powerful security actor in this part of the world. Now, under the Obama administration, the United States believed that there should be more multilateral engagement. In other words, it should not be only very bilateral, but also more multilateral. United States engaging with ASEAN, United States engaging with other powers in the world, because the US realized that it alone cannot manage the world order. It needs partners, allies, and friends to also maintain the global order. The United States' close friends, as you know, in Asia are Japan and South Korea. They have security alliances with the United States. The US also has a security alliance with Thailand and the Philippines through the Manila Pact, which created the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, 1954. That is dead. SEATO itself is dead, but the pact itself still survives. In other words, if let us say Thailand or the Philippines were to face a major emergency, a major threat, the United States, as a security partner, is committed to help them. It can intervene because the Manila Pact provides for it. So this is the kind of the security Pax Americana that we have had for the last 50 years. And can we say that actually this security order in the Asia Pacific has actually benefited everybody, including America's adversaries. Besides the allies, the adversaries, even China, Russia. India was not really a friend of the US earlier on because of non-alignment, but now India is on board as a partner. Now everybody actually has benefited in this common user called security, largely provided by the US. So the US strategic presence is still here in the Asia Pacific, maintaining the political and economic order of the Asia Pacific region. Nobody seems to be very upset with it, because everybody seems to be benefiting from it. They're getting free rides, including China. China's growth also required political and strategic stability, which the US was also providing through its relationship with Japan. As you know, the US-Japan alliance is actually the cornerstone of Asia-Pacific security. That is still ongoing. So this is the kind of security Pax Americana that is still in place. Now, will Trump alter this picture? This is something we'll have to look at. Now, let's go to the next one, which is one major area of contention, not only among Southeast Asian states, which are claimants to the South China Sea, islands in the South China Sea, rocks, and so on, with China. But the US also now is getting more involved in the South China Sea disputes. Why is the US getting more interested in this region? Is China therefore challenging American supremacy in Asia? Is China challenging the security order, the Pax Americana in the security dimension, that has been there for the last 50, 60 years? So this is the point. Is there a power transition taking place that is inevitable? And therefore the South China Sea has become a hotbed, has become a focus of conflict. The South China Sea, as you know, is not a place where oranges are being grown. If only oranges are found, you wouldn't have a conflict, isn't it? Just like, when the Persian Gulf crisis broke out in 1990, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. If Kuwait only were growing oranges, I don't think the US or the rest of the world will get too excited or go to the United Nations to put together a 28-nation coalition force in order to drive Iraq from Kuwait. But Kuwait was strategic and also very important in oil. The oil was very important not only to the US and industrial countries, but also required for the rest of the world and for the economic development of the world. So securing the oil supplies required also friendly regimes to the United States. So regimes that were seen to be very anti-American clearly would not be liked by the US, and the US will want to therefore try to see if it can install in that place regimes that are more pro-American or at least friendly to the United States and not opposed to US interests in the world. So that was a conflict there. Now here, coming back to the South China Sea, you can see that there have been several developments which now make us focus more on South China Sea as a possible flashpoint. It can become a major conflict zone in the next few years. Remember, the South China Sea is very rich in energy resources. And China requires these energy resources to keep up its growth rate at 6 to 8%. So one way of doing it is to say that the South China Sea belongs to it. So China claims sovereignty over 90% of the South China Sea. But there are also other claimants who feel that they too have some territory which they control in the South China Sea. Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei, and also Taiwan. So there are also these other claimants. So that's why you've got a dispute now in the South China Sea. In 1974, you can see China seized the Paracels from Vietnam, killing more than 70 Vietnamese troops. All these incidents are leading up to something. That's why I identified the major incidents. 1988, the two sides clashed in the Spratlys. And I'll put up a map of the South China Sea, you can see afterwards. With Vietnam again coming off worse, losing about 60 sailors. Then, 2012, China and the Philippines engaged in a lengthy maritime standoff, accusing each other of intrusions in the Scarborough Shoal. December 2012, unverified claims that the Chinese Navy sabotaged two Vietnamese exploration operations in late 2012, which led to huge anti-China protests in Vietnam. January 2013, the Philippines now submits its claim to the Permanent Court of Arbitration using the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, which governs the conduct of states in international waters, and thereby challenging China's claims to the South China Sea.